Grab your extra-large, ethically sourced, iced oat milk matchas, darlings, and gather around the digital campfire. Because today the daily gossip is taking a sharp left turn from our usual Hollywood breakups and Nepo baby drama. Today, we are putting on our designer combat boots and diving headfirst into the ultimate reality television show currently broadcasting live from the global stage. Forget the Real Housewives. Forget the Kardashians, because the absolute messiest drama happening right now is between the United States and Iran. Honey, the geopolitical tea is boiling over, it is scalding, and it is leaving third-degree burns all over the international economy. Let me paint the picture for you. We are talking about blockades, we are talking about naval shootouts, we are talking about unhinged social media posts at 3 in the morning, and a cast of characters so bizarre you would think they were rejected from a Bravo casting call for being too unrealistic. We are currently watching two nations play a game of geopolitical chicken, and honestly, both of them are driving blindfolded while live-streaming it for clout. Let us start with the setting of our fabulous little season finale, the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, and quote, Strait of Hormuz? Is that a new boutique fitness class? Is it a luxury brand of artisanal hummus? End quote. No, my sweet, geopolitically unbothered angels. The Strait of Hormuz is essentially the VIP entrance to the global oil club. It is this tiny, critical waterway, a little aquatic bottleneck where a massive chunk of the world's liquid black gold squeezes through every single day. And right now, the bouncer at the door is throwing hands. So what exactly is the tea? The United States, leaning fully into its era of aggressive maritime neighborhood watch, has set up a naval blockade. They essentially parked their very expensive, very gray boats in the water and said, and quote, nobody moves, nobody gets hurt, show me your receipts, end quote. Iran, absolutely furious and playing the role of the aggrieved neighbor whose driveway is being blocked, has declared the strait closed. They are pointing fingers, screaming that the U.S. is violating the ceasefire terms, while the U.S. is standing there, arms crossed, saying the blockade stays until a final deal is signed in blood, ink, or preferably crude oil. But wait, just when you thought everyone was going to sit down, take a deep breath, and maybe schedule a Zoom mediation, the action movie sequence begins. Despite both sides recently dropping little breadcrumbs about, and quote, progress in peace talks, and quote, which, let us be real, in international diplomacy terms usually just means they didn't in oppose. Actively throw a shoe at each other that week, everything suddenly went completely off the rails. And how did we find out about this military escalation? Through a classified Pentagon briefing? A solemn televised address from the Oval Office? Oh, absolutely not. We found out the same way we find out about a D-list celebrity feud, on social media. Enter President Donald Trump, taking to his Truth Social app, presumably with a Diet Coke in one hand and the nuclear codes acting as a paperweight on his desk. He hits the timeline to drop an absolute bombshell of a story time. According to the president's very vivid recounting, a U.S. Navy destroyer intercepted an Iranian-flagged cargo ship. This ship was apparently trying to sneak past the American blockade. Now, in the normal world, when you get pulled over, you roll down the window, you hand over your license, and you cry a little bit to get out of the ticket. Not this Iranian crew. They decided to play hard to get. They refused to listen. They ghosted the U.S. Navy. And how does the U.S. Navy handle being left on read? Well, Trump gleefully wrote, and I quote, because you cannot make this level of petty up, and quote, it did not go well for them. And quote, honey, that is not a military situational update. That is the caption you put under a photo of your ex looking miserable with their new downgrade. He then casually explains that our Navy ships stopped this cargo vessel dead in its tracks by literally blowing a hole in its engine room. Just boom. You won and oppose. T-stop? Fine, we and oppose. LL remodel your lower deck with high explosives. Right now, as we speak, U.S. Marines have custody of this vessel, probably trying to figure out how to parallel park it in a holding port. And Iran's state media? They are doing exactly what you do when someone slaps your drink out of your hand at the club. They are publicly vowing to quickly and aggressively retaliate. But let us pivot back to the real battlefield, which is, of course, the Truth Social timeline, because Donald Trump's thumbs were just getting warmed up. After casually dropping the news that we are blowing holes in ships, he decides to pivot to the narrative of who started it. He claims that Iran decided to start firing bullets yesterday in the Strait of Hormuz, calling it a, and quote, total violation of our ceasefire agreement, end quote. But here is where the script supervisor really needs to step in because the continuity is falling apart. Trump specifically describes the ships that Iran supposedly fired upon as French and British. Now, I am no nautical geographer, but the collective international media, the intelligence community, and basically anyone with eyes on the water looked around and said, and quote, wait, what? End quote, because all the actual reports, the boring factual ones, stated that it was actually 2 Indian vessels that came under fire. Not French. Not British. Indian. Where did he get French and British? Did he just name the first 2 European countries that popped into his head? Was he looking at a menu for a continental breakfast? Nobody knows. We are just rewriting maritime history on the fly, darlings. Keep up. And just as you are trying to process this geographical word salad, he drops the itinerary for the upcoming season of The Amazing Race. Diplomatic Crisis Edition. He announces that his, and quote, representatives, and quote, are jetting off to Islamabad, Pakistan, for negotiations tomorrow evening. He claims he is offering a, and quote, very fair and reasonable deal. End quote. Now, when someone tells you their deal is fair and reasonable right before threatening you, you know you are about to get scammed. And true to form, the velvet glove comes right off to reveal a brass knuckle. He writes, with the casual breezy tone of someone ordering a pizza, that he hopes Iran takes this fabulous deal because if they do not, the United States is going to, end quote, knock out every single power plant and every bridge in Iran. End quote. Let that sink into your pores. Every single power plant, every bridge. And then, the absolute piece de resistance, the cherry on top of this terrifying sundae, he hits the caps lock key. We all know what happens when the caps lock comes on. He writes, end quote, no more Mr. Nice guy, end quote. I had to put my phone down and take a lap around my living room, end quote. No more Mr. Nice guy, end quote, was blowing a hole in the engine room of a ship the, end quote, nice guy, end quote, phase? Were the naval blockades the complimentary appetizer? We are living in a cartoon universe where the leader of the free world is delivering ultimatums that sound like they were written by a comic book villain who just got his heart broken. He is threatening to plunge an entire nation into the dark ages, to blow up civic infrastructure, to literally turn the lights off in millions of homes, and he ends it with a catchphrase from a 1980s teen movie. But wait, grab a fresh cup, because the drama regarding exactly who is going on this little peacemaking excursion to Islamabad is its own standalone comedy special. Trump didn't and oppose. T actually name names in his initial Truth Social manifesto. He just said, and quote, my representatives, and quote, like he and oppose. Sending his lawyers to settle a parking dispute. So the media goes digging. A White House spokesperson, whispering from the shadows, and quote, on background, and quote, because nobody wants to put their name on this circus, leaks the guest list. And oh, what a list it is. Leading the pack is Vice President J.D. Vance. Okay, sure, send the VP. But tagging along is Steve Witkoff. For those of you who aren't and oppose, deeply invested in New York real estate lore, Steve Witkoff is a real estate tycoon and Trump and oppose. Golf buddy turned, end quote, peace envoy, end quote. Because nothing says, end quote, we understand complex Middle Eastern sectarian conflicts, end quote, like a guy who knows how to negotiate the zoning rights for a luxury condo in Manhattan. And rounding out this holy trinity of diplomacy, Jared Kushner. Yes, the son-in-law returns. Just when you thought he was safely tucked away in Miami counting his private equity money, Jared is back in the mix, presumably packing his slimmest fitting suits to go solve the Middle East. Again. But hold your horses, because the plot twists. Shortly after this leak, Trump is on the phone with ABC News, and he casually mentions that, actually, J.D. Vance won and oppose. TB going. Why? Because of, end quote, security concern, end quote. It's too dangerous for J.D. We can't risk the vice president. So everyone assumes Vance is staying home to water the plants. But then, plot twist number 2. The White House Communications Office, which at this point must be functioning entirely on Red Bull and panic attacks, frantically puts out a statement saying, end quote, actually no, Vance is in fact going. End quote. Can you imagine the group chat? Did Trump forget he approved the trip? Did JD complain about the flight time? Did the Secret Service just throw their hands up? We have the president pulling his own vice president off a diplomatic mission on live television. only for his own staff to immediately overrule him. It is giving high school field trip chaos. End quote. Mom said I can and oppose. T go. Wait, Dad said I can. I and oppose. M on the bus, Don and oppose. T look at me. End quote. It is a spectacular display of absolute dysfunction right before sitting down to negotiate a potential World War III. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, the Iranians are looking at this absolute clown car pulling up to Islamabad and reacting exactly how you would expect. According to an Iranian news agency, Tehran hasn't and oppose. T even RSVP and oppose. D to the event yet. They are sitting in their group chat, leaving the US on and quote, red. End quote. They are reportedly still furious about the naval blockade. They are furious that their ships are being stopped, searched, and, blown up. Iran said on Friday they were going to open the strait. But when the US refused to move their boats, Iran and oppose. Revolutionary Guard stepped up to the microphone today and said, end quote, nope, the strait stays closed, end quote. So we have a peace summit scheduled for tomorrow, and one of the two main guests has an oppose. T even confirmed if they are going to show up, because they are too busy fighting in the driveway. To help us unpack this absolute mess, the network brought on a former U.S. Navy lawyer and intelligence officer, Sean Hansler. And bless Sean's heart, he came on television trying to sound like a rational, logical adult in a room full of toddlers armed with flamethrowers. Sean, sitting there with his calm demeanor, tries to frame all of this as a, end quote, larger chess match, end quote. He says everyone is just trying to exert pressure and gain leverage before the talks. Sean points out that, technically, strictly speaking, if you look at the rulebook, the U.S. Navy actually acted lawfully today. They have an established blockade. They warned the Iranian ship. The ship ignored the warning. They fired shots to stop it. According to the law of naval warfare, which sounds like an incredibly boring class I would have slept through in college, this is all by the book. It's in quote, prize law, end quote. He says, where they take the ship to a port and adjudicate the cargo. It all sounds very orderly, very proper, very much like getting your car impounded for unpaid tickets. But then, Sean hits the nail on the head regarding Iran and oppose's strategy. He asks the million-dollar question, who actually ordered that Iranian state-owned vessel to try and run the blockade in the first place? Was it a rogue captain who had one too many espressos? Unlikely. If it was the Iranian government or the Revolutionary Guard pulling the strings, then what we are watching is a masterclass in manipulation. Iran is testing the waters literally and figuratively. They are playing in the, end quote, gray zone, end quote, engaging in activity that is hard to definitively pin on the top brass, all designed to make the U.S. look like the crazy aggressor. They wanted the U.S. to shoot. They wanted the footage of a damaged ship to wave around at the United Nations, crying, end quote, look at these American bullies attacking our poor cargo boys, end quote. It is a setup, darling. It is a trap. And the U.S. walked right into it, firing the shots and then bragging about it on social media. As Sean wisely notes, there is zero trust here. Zero. It never existed, and expecting them to sit down on Wednesday and hash out a magical peace treaty is like expecting two reality stars who just threw wine in each other in oppo's faces to co-host a podcast the next day. It is, end quote, almost impossible, end quote. But here is where the Daily Gossip really has to step in and critique the public relations strategy of the United States. We asked Sean about Trump and oppo's comments, the threats to blow up the whole of Iran, the past comments about ending entire civilizations, the all caps and quote, "No more MR. Nice guy," and quote, temper tantrum. Do these things impact the legitimacy of the military? Sean, trying desperately to maintain his professional composure, essentially says, and quote, yeah, absolutely. And quote, he admits the rhetoric has a massively detrimental impact. He starts talking about the, end quote, law of armed conflict, end quote, and how there is no question that, in a vacuum, you could legally target a bridge or a power plant if it gives you a military advantage. But, and this is a big, flashing neon, but you have to do a, end quote, collateral damage estimate. And quote, you have to make sure you aren't in oppos, slaughtering innocent civilians just to turn off the Wi-Fi. And this is the hilarious, tragic irony of it all. You have the U.S. military, filled with lawyers like Sean, painstakingly calculating blast radiuses, writing legal memos, trying to keep everything above board and lawful. And while they are doing math to save lives, their boss is on a social media app firing off threats to wipe a country off the map because he's in a bad mood. Sean literally called the rhetoric in quote, over the top, unnecessary, and not helpful, end quote. Translated from military lawyer speak to gossip speak, end quote. The boss is ruining our brand and making us look like psychotic villains, end quote. The military is trying to play a strategic game of chess, and the commander-in-chief is flipping the board over and eating the pieces. So what is the actual point of all this? What does the US actually want? If you look at the shifting objectives over the last few years, it's enough to give you whiplash. 1 minute it's about controlling Iran's missiles. The next minute it's about their enriched uranium supply. Then it's about the nuclear program in general. It is like dating someone who keeps changing the reasons why they are mad at you. And quote, I and Oppos. Am mad you didn't and Oppos. T text me back. No, I and Oppos. Am mad about your tone. Actually, I and Oppos. Am mad about something you did 3 years ago. And quote, according to our guy Sean, the goals have finally narrowed down to the 2 big ones, the nuclear program and the Strait of Hormuz. He thinks there is room for negotiation on the nukes. Sure, maybe, but the Strait of Hormuz? Iran just pushed a bill through their parliament basically saying they own that water forever and ever, amen. Which the rest of the world obviously cannot accept, because we all need our packages delivered and our gas tanks filled. As for the missiles, Sean says forget about it. Iran is going to keep building missiles until the end of time. So, essentially, the US has a wish list and Iran has already crossed out half the items with a thick red Sharpie. And this brings us to the ultimate gossip truth of this entire saga. The global impact. Because why do we, sitting comfortably in our homes, care about this watery bottleneck halfway across the world? Because, honey, the passage of oil affects everything. It affects the West, it affects Canada, it affects the price of literally everything you buy. And Iran knows this. They are not stupid. They are holding the global economy by the throat. By closing this strait, they are subjecting the entire world to immense financial pressure. Why? Because they want us to suffer just enough so that the rest of the world turns to the United States and screams and quote, for the love of God, just give them what they want so my gas ISN and Oppos. $8 a gallon? End quote. It is a geopolitical hostage situation. Iran is counting on the international community to break before they do. They are holding the ultimate trump card, pun intended, and they are not letting it go. Sean suggests that maybe the major players, like China, need to step in and work some backchannel magic, whispering in America's ear that it is in everybody's best interest to wrap this up before the global markets completely collapse. So here we are, staring down the barrel of a Monday meeting in Islamabad. We have a U.S. delegation comprised of a VP who was almost uninvited, a real estate mogul, and Jared Kushner. We have an empty chair on the other side of the table because Iran is leaving us on red. We have ships with fresh holes blown in them, a strait that is tighter than a pair of vintage jeans, and a president whose caps lock key is the most dangerous weapon in the Western Hemisphere. Will they find a middle ground? Will Steve Witkoff offer to build a luxury resort in Tehran in exchange for nuclear disarmament? Will Jared solve the Middle East before dinner? Or will Donald Trump just tweet us all into oblivion while the military lawyers frantically try to find a loophole that saves civilization? Grab your popcorn, darlings. The season premiere of World War III is looking chaotic, messy, and entirely devoid of logic. Keep your notifications on, your gas tanks full, and remember, in the world of international diplomacy, sometimes the truth is far stranger and far more terrifying than the gossip. Until next time, stay fabulous, stay petty, and stay out of the Strait of Hormuz.